Well, welcome back to a new episode of the Win More, Live Better podcast. And as those of you that have been following along since the beginning of this show, or maybe even more recently, I try to bring some of the brightest minds that I can find in terms of not only sport but leadership and coaching from all different arenas, all different settings, and bring them to you in these conversations. And today, this my guest is none other than Karch Kiraly, and I've had Karch on my list for quite a while now. We've had some back and forth discussions trying to make this possible, and I'm super grateful for him uh, getting back to me and taking the time to have today's conversation. And more than anything, just really excited to dive into the themes around leadership and culture and mindset and whatnot that we like to get into. So without further ado, Karch, I just want to thank you first and foremost for your presence today.
Well, thank you. I'm really excited to be here and share ideas and look at it as another learning opportunity.
Yeah. Kind of maybe building off of the idea of like a learning opportunity. I think in the other things that I've listened to, you very much have this growth oriented mindset. And I know this past year also was a little different in some ways for you with the transition to being the head coach for the men's national team. And we're at a point where I know things are a little quieter on your end. So I'd love to ask, like, when you zoom out so far from this kind of first year, kind of really leading the men's program, what are some things that maybe have stood out to you the most? Not just maybe in terms of results, but in terms of things that you've really learned from this past year.
For me, certainly it was a huge year of learning after spending really something like 16 years in the USA women's national team world, 4 as an assistant and then 12 as a head coach through 3 Olympic cycles. And so I look back on it with great gratitude in terms of getting uncomfortable and first of all, learning another population, a whole new population of high performing human beings, which is a joy to meet and get to know all these people, and each one being unique and being a unique performer and learner. So that was great. A lot of guys I knew of, but knew, the USA men, the USA women, they work in we all work in the same gym in Southern California in Anaheim. But our focuses are very different. And so while I knew some of the American men's players, I didn't know them beyond watching them from afar, seeing them performing at a high level, but really didn't know them any deeper than that, or cheering them on as the two teams would cheer each other on. So that was great. I found some similarities too, the same challenges in mental performance, the same challenges of things like people wondering if they deserve to be in a program like this, a kind of imposter's syndrome thing, which maybe I would have expected a little less of on the men's side. The caricature, the stereotype is that every guy thinks he's the best on the team or the best on the planet, and if anything goes wrong, it's not his fault. It's always somebody else's fault. But that didn't fall through, kind of align with those stereotypes so much, and found the guys to have a very clear-eyed view, or a generally clear-eyed view of their strengths and weaknesses. And it was also fun to work a number of key veteran performers over the years with the men's team. Took a break for most of this last national team season. And the national team season for volleyball really lasts from about the middle of April till the middle of October. And so, as you mentioned, it's a little quieter period for me, even though it's not quieter for our players because they're all over the world right now playing professionally in countries like Japan and Italy and Poland and France and Germany and Turkey and Russia and elsewhere. But great to, it's a really good group of guys to meet. And because those number of key veterans took time off, it was really an exciting period for a bunch of young guys to get some of their first chances ever at wearing the mantle and carrying the responsibility of being the A team. And so we were all kind of, in a sense, in it together in terms of let's figure it out in the beginning of this new Olympic cycle. So it was really fresh. Great to a good challenge to get to know these people and be in it together and try to put it together and put together a nice World Championships campaign in September. We came up a little short, had a heartbreaking loss in the quarterfinals there, or we had a nice road laid out to maybe even be playing for a gold medal in that tournament. So all in all, a great year of challenge and learning, and I feel much more knowledgeable. Certainly, gained a crazy amount of knowledge about this program.
Later on in the conversation, I'm going to be excited to kind of tap into more of what you talked about, like the observation that you have made, and also like in conversations, things you heard from players, that self-doubt, that imposter syndrome. I think that's certainly sometimes I know people will ask like, hey, when you've worked with some of the highest level performers in the world in their craft, are there things that might surprise you? I think that's sometimes one of which is that like they have self-doubt, they have fear, they have self-limiting beliefs, they have stories that they've told themselves that are not very true, but they've endorsed over time and things like that. So I do want to pull that back in a moment. But what I'd also love to ask is, what did this year teach you about yourself, or things that you felt like you maybe learned as a coach or as a leader through this experience so far?
Um, I think and I guess I would preface it by saying I have now become head coach of a USA national team twice. Once I made the transition from assistant coach with the women to head coach with the women. And another, I made transition from head coach of the women to head coach of the men. And I think the second one was a lot more challenging, just because when you're an assistant coach, you know so many parts of the program already so well, know the people, know the parts, know what you might want to do, what might want to change. And I knew this program, even though we worked in the same building. We didn't go, except for a tournament like the Olympics, weren't in the same place at the same time very often in competition, and rarely had deep and meaningful interactions between the two programs because they're on their own schedules. So there was a lot of catching up to do, for sure, a lot more than the transition of moving one chair over. And so part of my approach was just a kind of let's wait and see a little and learn people and learn capabilities and things like that. So I didn't come in like a bull in a china shop and just say we got to change everything. For certainly, there's not even the case to be made for changing everything. The men's program has been a top 5, top 3 in the world program year after year for many years. Where it's come up short, where the guys have come up short, the teams come up short, is just getting it over the top and winning in an Olympic semifinal instead of falling a little short, or winning a gold medal at the World Championships, things like that. So they've been in the hunt for years and years, and that too argues for not making radical changes, but just learning, and also then learning that the things that I have valued over the course of time, a heavy focus on a learning mindset, a heavy focus on hard work, a heavy focus on gratitude, a heavy focus on things like failure recovery. Those are things that we, and it's so cliche, but it's important to always say it. The things that we can control are the things that we should be focusing on. This program's had a lot of success, but it is not good enough yet. I always add the word yet, because if we were good enough, then our men's team would have won a gold medal in the Olympics a year and a half ago in Paris instead of a bronze medal. Would have won a world championships gold medal, things like that. We set really high goals for ourselves in terms of results, and we're not there yet. And the only way to get there, to get where we would like to go, especially with an LA 2028 games looming 2.5 years off, is by learning and improving, because we're not there yet, is through really focused and intentional effort to do that learning, through the gratitude for the people around us doing the same thing, and having an ability to recover from failure. Our sport is maybe not as steeped in failure as baseball, like you work so closely with, where a great hitter fails 7 out of 10 times. But there is a lot of failure in the sport of volleyball, in the sense that a great team might play a long match and play 220 rallies. And maybe if the great team wins 52% of them, then they're going to win a lot of matches. But that means that over 110 or 105 times out of those 220 rallies, we fell short. The other team won the rally. And so the margins are slim, and we fail a lot. We fail to win the point a lot. And we're on a good track if we're winning 52% of the time and failing 48% of the time. So how we respond to that 48%, 49%, 49.9% of the match is really, really important.
Building off of that, you talk about that failure recovery, and I know that this is something that I've heard you talk about in some other conversations in the past. Let's kind of go there for a quick moment. How do you go about communicating the importance of that principle, being able to recover and reset quickly from failure and have maybe a better relationship with it? And also then how do you train that with your athletes?
Number one, you can point out things like how close match. I can point out how close things like a match can be. In the 2016 Olympics with the women, we lost a heartbreaker of a semifinal match, the only match the team lost all tournament long. And the USA women scored 101 points, and the opponent scored 101 points. So it was exactly even. And it emphasizes how if we change one of those and make it 102 to 100, the outcome could well be different. Secondly, I think it helps to show how teams can. It's not unusual and one of the peak events in volleyball is the Olympic Games. And it is not unusual for a team in preliminary play and group play to lose a match, to lose 2 matches, and then catch fire, and in the quarterfinals, in the playoff, the knockout rounds, do what they need to do to win. So they had to recover from 1 or 2 losses, sometimes heartbreaking losses, or sometimes just good old-fashioned butt whoopings. And that can dent people's confidence too. So to look at other Olympic results and see how often it is that teams will fail in the course of that tournament, yet still go on to win the coveted gold medal that 7 or 8 teams are all capable of winning, is really powerful. There are so many stories where for many years, the Olympic tournament was 2 groups, of 6 teams. And time after time, a team that barely got in because the top 4 of those 6 would move on to quarterfinals for a total of 8 teams. And it was shocking how often the team that barely sneaked in then goes on to win the tournament. As the 4th seed, they upset the first seed or first finisher, first performer from the opposite group, and then they're in the driver's seat. One key win, and they're off to the races. So there are great examples of how we can lose. We can make horrendous plays. We can the women's team, in the course of winning the gold medal, their first ever Olympic gold medal in Tokyo in 21, made some horrendous plays, things that you would not expect from a college team, maybe even a high school team. But then to watch the team not break apart, not get small, hunch over, but to stand tall, to come together, to have tighter huddles after that. Those are the examples of how you can fail, you can screw up, make horrible plays, but still keep moving forward and do it as a group. And so there's a lot of that. And then how do we train it? Well, we have to work on that in training, in competition, but we also try to set out some very demanding activities, things that would look like a volleyball game, but the way to accomplish the goal is really difficult, and maybe you only do it 1 out of 10 tries, 1 out of 12 tries. It's not impossible, but it's very, very difficult. And so then the key is, can the team fall short, go at it again the next day, fall short, come back to it 3 days later, a week later, and have the resolve to know, yeah, we're not getting this yet, but we know we can. And so try to set up some activities that are very, very difficult to do, just to challenge the resolve and allow the guys and the team to flex their willpower muscles and try to actually grow some of that resolve and willpower through adversity, through the 90% or plus chance that we will fall short, and we keep going.
One of the things that just amazes me is this is just another example in the realm of sport at a really high level where that equation or that the disproportionate amount of times that you quote unquote fail and yet you can still technically win, and that razor thin margin that you talked about kind of reminds me of there was the viral clip of Roger Federer talking to Dartmouth, and he said, like, I've won almost 80% of the matches in my career, but over the course of my whole career, I've only won 54% of the points. Like, you're talking about one of the best players of all time, only won 54% of the points. Like, that's such a thin margin. It sounds in a lot of ways like there's parallels there to the world of volleyball. In on the other end of the coin, there's failure and the recovery from it and how you train it. And then there's also like this perception of like pressure too. And, I think everybody kind of has their own philosophy interpretation of it. So I'm interested from your perspective, and this could be from your playing experience and also your coaching experience, kind of how you conceptualize pressure and what it does, and also how to train for it, how to thrive amidst it.
Was certainly a very common statement that you hear a lot in sports, and one of them is that pressure is a privilege. When people are competing at the Olympics, there are billions of people around the world watching who would love to be doing that. And so to remember and have the gratitude of, oh my God, I mean, I was at a U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee event recently, and I think they mentioned that there have only been something like about 10,000 American Olympians over the course of the modern Olympics from 1896 through Paris 2024. But of course, our population, the American population now might be over 340 million. And over the course of a century and a quarter, there's double that more. And you think of 10,000 out of hundreds and hundreds of millions just in our country. It's incredibly small. Those odds are incredibly small. Second, we all dream about this when we grow up, just like people dream about being batting at the plate in the bottom of the ninth inning, down by one, bases are loaded. You dream about that. You put yourself in. I put myself in that. All the players I know have put themselves in that imaginary moment. But the key is they choose that. It is not imposed upon them. We choose freely. Nobody has to go out for an Olympic team, but we choose it freely because we pursue these amazingly difficult goals. Then the pressure, I think, comes from the fact that it shows how much we care, how much we want to play well, to be a good teammate, to help our team do something incredibly special that doesn't happen very often. The American men's national team, men's Olympic team, has won a total of 3 Olympic gold medals since the Olympics first added indoor volleyball in 1964. The women have won 1, so it doesn't happen very often, but when it does, it is an incredible moment. We're choosing to go after that, and we're choosing to put ourselves in that position. And then, we put pressure on ourselves because we care about it so much. And also because it only happens once every 4 years. Imagine if the World Series in baseball only happened once every 4 years. People would then probably, I think the pressure would only rise that people would feel or put on themselves, knowing that if they don't do it that time, they got to wait 4 years for another chance. So, but I think the game is the same between the sidelines. It's just all the other stuff, all the other awareness, the worldwide awareness and television coverage that comes with the Olympics for a sport like volleyball, which is a very big worldwide sport, but the Olympics takes it to a different level. And so we talk about it a lot in terms of same game, different surroundings, much more of a media event, media circus, and how are we going to handle that? But I think it also comes back to the same mental skills that help a player when he or she is competing in the state high school playoffs or the college NCAA tournament are the same things, and it happens with everybody. The thoughts when we're putting pressure on ourselves, we'll also have a lot of what I would call just really unproductive thoughts. Some people might call them bad. I would just call it less productive than more. I don't know. Maybe somebody is going to the service line and is just thinking, please go in, or please don't miss this. Those are not particularly productive thoughts versus I am going to go after that passer across the net and make him bend to his right and be really assertive. But I think it's really comforting for players to know that those less productive thoughts, we don't, I joke with my team, I haven't gone to spend 20 or 30 years at the foot of a mountain in Nepal figuring out how to quiet my mind and have no thoughts. If I were to sit here and just try to have no thoughts, then I would immediately start thinking about why I'm trying to have no thoughts. And I can't, I don't have the skill to blank my mind and to control every thought I have, but I do have the skill to recognize what thoughts have bubbled up to the surface and notice and then get myself to a better thought. And that skill works whether it's in the gym in a tough activity that's hard to accomplish or whether it's an Olympic gold medal match.
What I love is like that is like an elite advanced perspective on principles and performance psychology, and I love that distinction. And I can tell in how you describe it that you're very intentional with the language that you're using, like even just you using the term unproductive, right? Because I think sometimes we coin it as negative and positive, and yet I also know there are certain instances where positive thinking can be unhelpful to somebody, and also there are instances where negative thinking, quote unquote, can be helpful in certain instances too. And so I love the
And for certain people, some
yes,
people get motivated by a thought of, damn it, will I ever get a kill again? And that'll tear some people down, and it'll actually spur some people on. So it's unique even in the person having those.
the thing that you describe that I think one of the things I appreciate the most is when you very purposefully use that word choice, or you can choose to put yourself in those moments. Like we can we can't control a lot of things, right? But we can control and choose our perspective to the things that we as you were describing it, it reminded me a little bit. There was a study where they looked at penalty kicks in soccer or football, depending on where you're from, on the world stage in the biggest tournaments. And what they found is that when uh, you're kicking, where if you miss the kick and your team would lose if you were to do so, you make it at about 62% of like 62% of the time.
I
However,
think
but
the make rate plummets in many of those situations.
yes, yeah, exactly, exactly. And then on the other end, it's like when you're making a PK that will result in your team winning, it's like 92%. It's like a 30% difference. It's like the task is the same, the game is the same, but it's all the other stuff around it. Where it actually like, because I really mean this, is like that's such a very advanced perspective that you've now gained in it. Like, where have you learned that from to have that mentality, and what's gone into that, whether it's again through your own athletic journey and or other places that you feel like you've landed on that being such an important way to talk about the mental game?
I think it's a combination. Certainly, I had a very long career as a player. I played high level volleyball for 30 years, from when I was 15 until I was 46. And that included beach volleyball and indoor volleyball. I also got to play for some of the best coaches who've ever coached the game, whether it's my high school coach or high school coach Rick Olmsted, or Coach Al Skates at UCLA, who won 19 NCAA titles, to national team coaches like Doug Beal and Marv Dunphy, the latter two of whom are good friends now and actually mentors. And I'm really grateful and lucky to consider them as both friends and mentors. So, um, a long experience, a long career playing, working with great coaches, working as an assistant coach, working with Ken Ravizza, who's one of the legends in mental performance. Loved Ravi, bless his soul, as he's no longer with us, but um, uh, I really like realism in mental performance, and he was a realist. It wasn't rainbows and ponies. It was like, he would say, pardon my French, but he'd say, if it's going to be a shitty day, I'm going to make it the best damn shitty day I've ever had in this gym. Like, if I'm just going to struggle to do much of anything right, I'm going to throw my heart and soul into it and kind of embrace that and see what positive I can get, see how I can contribute to the people around me, even when this part of the game isn't going for me. I loved his analogies, and I think I own a copy and probably reread it every couple of years. Heads Up Baseball, and it has so many good ideas in there. But one of them is just how he points out how many Hall of Fame baseball pitchers, if you were to ask them, how often did you have all of your stuff? And it was it's very rarely more than like 15% of the time. A volleyball player, an outside hitter, needs a lot of stuff too. He needs to be able to serve, to receive serve, to set, to attack, to block, to defend, all of these different skills to make contributions. And if one of them isn't working, well, I still got to figure out a way. I can either choose, I have a choice, and let that drag me down into this spiral where I fall down I go down the rabbit hole and I can't come out, or I just say, all right, that part's not working today. I'm going to make some adjustments there. I might not get very many kills, but I can still contribute to my team in so many other ways, and I can still be the kind of player where the team plays better if I'm on the court. And I want to contribute to the team performing better. So I loved the realism of Ravi in that it is very rarely perfection. It's really fun to pursue perfection, but a perfect volleyball game is like basically impossible. How would you win 25-0 against an evenly matched team? No, it's going to be 25-23, 26-24. And things are very rarely perfect, and that's okay. The quicker we acknowledge that and are okay with that and work in imperfection, we can turn that immediately into an advantage. If another team is frustrated with imperfection and we relish it, then we can earn ourselves another point or two out of those 200 plus points. I have lost your sound now.
Oh, sorry. I
There,
got it.
there
There
we
we
go.
go. You took me back for a minute there in reflection of Ken. You're the second person just today alone that I've heard his name, and we're
Oh, Ravi,
reflecting. He's
how you
he's
doing?
yeah,
How
you
you
did that.
doing, Zach?
That's right, Zach. Man, like he was just such one of a kind. And when you were describing that, hey, it's not all sunshines and rainbows, I'll never forget, he'd talk about, do you want sunshines, rainbows, happiness? All right, you just go down the street over here. You buy a ticket for 100 something bucks to go to Disneyland. He's like, you can have sunshine, rainbows there. He's like, sport, it ain't that easy.
Nope, nope. And we choose to be in it. So
Yeah.
why not squeeze out another small advantage and just say, yep, it's not gonna be perfect. It probably ever no won't ever, even though it's really fun to pursue perfection. But the reality is it's ugly. That's what I really treasure is when things are really a struggle, and teams that I've been on and coached relish that most too. Wow, this is hard. It is just like slogging through quicksand to try to get a W against a great team across the net. But when you accomplish it, when it's so difficult and so ugly in a way, and so imperfect in a way, those are often some of the greatest accomplishments when we were only 60% of what we could be and still figured it out. Being problem solvers, figuring out the puzzle. And the puzzle that day is very different than it would have been the day before against the same team or the next day against the same team.
It's a great way to highlight things that are important to you. You talked earlier about, the hard work, the failure recovery, the gratitude, the having the learning mindset. Like it's very clear that those are very important kind of cardinal values for you, and in hearing a little bit as to how they show up. One thing that it comes to mind is I've had two different conversations recently. One was with a college basketball coach, and he said that one of their themes over this last year was like, we want to lead the nation in improvement. Like, we want to be the best team day in and day out. And he's like, I know we may not have always metrics for that and ways to always quantify that, but like, we're showing up every day to be the best team in the country. There's another coach that I had a conversation with recently, a softball coach. One of the things that she shared was her perspective was shifting a little bit away from the usage of failure, just because it can have such a visceral reaction from those that we serve and athletes, to how do we master struggle. And that was one of the things we kind of landed on too, was this notion of like, how can we be the best team in the country at mastering struggle, and what's that look like? How do we measure that? How do we train for that, and so on. So I like hearing too how those have also maybe been some of the more rewarding and meaningful experiences that you've had, as a teacher and as a coach in this game.
I like that idea of mastering struggle, and just because first of all, it's an acceptance that sports, if you're going to play at a high level, there will be struggle. Nobody dreams of winning the World Series 51-0 because they're playing a fourth grade team or whatever. Nobody dreams of winning the Olympics in volleyball 25-3, 25-3, 25-3. They dream of it goes the distance and it's 18-18 in the fifth game and in the tiebreaker, and finally we figure out a way to close it out with the last couple of points. You dream of the struggle. When you're playing great competition, there is no domination. It's just very fine margins for who's going to come out on top. So we dream of that struggle, and so it's better that we can wrap our arms around it. It also made me think of this season, this past first season of mine with the USA men. When we started out, our first competition, it's called Volleyball Nations League. We call it VNL for short. It happens every year. You go to different countries in different weeks. It's almost a 2-month tournament. But the first week, we went early to Brazil. Their team invited us down to their national training center and said, hey, could we play a couple of scrimmages, a couple of friendlies, and help each other tune up for official week 1 of VNL? And in those 2 scrimmages, we were a train wreck. We were awful. Our players knew it. Our coaches knew it. We were just like, oh my God, we've got a lot of work to do here. And then we kept with it slowly but surely. And by the end of the season, even some of the coaches of that Brazil team and others, they were like, wow, that team, your team, made an incredible transformation. You made me think of it when you talked about a college basketball team leading the nation in improvement. Certainly, our USA men's team was one of the most improved teams over the course of the year. We didn't go as far as we wanted in World Championships, but our level of play was light years ahead of where it was in May when we got to the World Championships in September. And that was something we were striving for and can feel proud about, even if we had a heartbreaking loss to end that tournament and end our season.
I I think I just love that distinction again of learning how to master struggle, and really like the expectation setting of it, of knowing that, hey, as you set out on this journey to climb whatever mountain it is for you as a team, you as an individual, we always get fixated on the peak, right? Or the summit where we're trying to ultimately go, but don't forget, like, hey, the pathway there is not always going to be sunshines and rainbows, as to borrow again from Ken. You're signing up not only for the peaks, but you're also signing up for some of the lows and some of the
Yeah.
challenging moments as well. And that's kind of all part of the experience. So I think just that expectation setting on the front end is impactful. Karch, for you, and I'll use 10 years, but you can zoom out even further if you'd like. But what do you believe now about coaching that maybe you didn't 10 years ago, or again 15, 20? You can kind of choose the time frame, but in an early version of you, what's something that maybe you believe now that you didn't early on?
I played volleyball for 30 years, and really enjoyed that playing career. There's something really special about pursuing difficult, near impossible things to accomplish with a group of people and teammates. And through almost all of that time, I did not think I had the patience to coach. People would ask me, "Are you going to coach?" And I'd say, "Yeah, I don't really see it in my future." But then um, our boys, one was in high school in ninth grade, the other in middle school, eighth grade, and our ninth grader, our older son, played a season, his first season of volleyball, and his team had a really rough year. They lost every match, so they were 0-31, but they also lost every set of every match. They were 0-93. And one of them, they were ahead 20-10 and figured out a way to lose 25-23. So it was after that set that my my wife said, "Karch, you got to help them, not to win a title, but just to like win 1 out of 93 sets. Let them taste some little bit of success." So I was lucky enough that when I asked the high school if I could get involved, they were happy to accept my self-invitation, and that started me in coaching. And so I think this idea of which I didn't think I had the patience for, of trying to help a group of people do something on a volleyball court that they weren't sure whether they could do or not, and help them grow, help them improve over the course of the season, is a big driver for me. And um, as soon as the high school said yes, we'd happy to have you, and we'd be happy to have you involved, I immediately signed up for a coaching clinic with one of my mentors, Marv Dunphy, who coached for many years at Pepperdine and also the coach of the USA team, and um, and jumped right in and took notes. And so I tried to approach it. Some people are like, "What are you doing here? You've done volleyball for a long time." I said, "Well, I haven't coached a lot. I haven't coached at all, really. And I need to approach this as a beginner, as a learner." And so I think that's another thing that has hit me over the course of time, now more than ever, is just to understand how different coaching is from playing. And every year that goes past is uh, the I guess the point is driven home further and further. Those are very, very different things, and but funds to take, um, to really enjoy the struggle and commitment to be good at, whether it's being a player and a teammate, or being a coach and, in a sense, a teammate, because we're all in this collaborating and working together to try to see how good we can be, how far, how much the team can bring out of each other.
One of the things that has come up in some of my other conversations with coaches is that, as you mentioned, that distance or that you have between playing and coaching, that the more extended that gets, the further away you get from playing, you sometimes forget some of those underlying feelings and emotions and things that players encounter. You forget kind of what those are like. So for example, like as athletes, like we're oftentimes as coaches putting them in situations on a day-to-day basis of discomfort and inviting them to get uncomfortable, to strengthen their resolve and to increase their capacity and everything in between. And what has come up in some coaches is like, what are the ways that you are putting yourself in uncomfortable situations to learn, or challenging yourself? It doesn't even have to be an uncomfortable situation, but what are ways that maybe you're going outside your own comfort zone to learn and grow? And so I really like that. And I think that also aligns with your that learning mindset that you talked a lot about at the beginning. I know we're getting kind of to the end here, so I want to kind of put I want to see if I can fit a couple questions in here at the buzzer, but I think one thing I'd love to ask you, Karch, is, a lot of people will ask high performers like, "Hey, tell me like what advice would you say? Like what should I start doing? What are the things that you do that's led to success?" I almost want to ask you the opposite, which is, What are some things that you're like very intentional and purposeful not to do as a coach that you think help you be the leader that you are?
I guess one thing I'm aware, for example, of body language with our team. I would like it to be difficult for somebody to tell whether the team is winning or losing. When it's really easy, you can see a team droop and chins go down, chest caves in, shoulders come up and forward, and it's so easy to infect others with a semi-defeated body language. So I certainly try to encourage that with our team and our guys, and I try to practice that myself. So I try never to cross my arms when I'm coaching, either in practice or in matches, because I feel like that sends off a signal of being closed off. I try never to put my hands in my pockets. I'm always trying to in a sense, like lean forward, or maybe even literally lean forward and put my hands on my knees and be in it and attentive more. So I'm certainly aware of certain things I try not to do, and it's pretty easy for me not to do those things. Cross my arms, put them in my pocket, things like that. Um, Another thing I will try to avoid is I'm not um, uh, I'm not a best friend to our players, so I try to maintain a cordial relationship, but not a peer-to-peer relationship. Um, I try to avoid making it just about their performance. The thing that I tell them regularly is it would be I have no greater hope for anybody that I coach or work with than to find somebody that they love deeply to share their life with. I'm lucky enough to have found such a person. She's my favorite person ever, my wife, and I'm her favorite person ever. Really lucky. We're going to be on 39 years of marriage in a few weeks. And there's nothing greater. So there's this element of cheering people on in just finding someone to share their life with, hopefully finding someone to start a family with, as you have, and as we're in a different phase of that with our boys in their early 30s now. But kind of remembering what's really important and emphasizing it with people I coach. As much as I'd love to see them perform their best, I also don't want to see them miserable and alone when they get to be 45 or 50. And so there's this deep element of trying to of avoiding making it just about volleyball performance. Those are some
Mm,
of the things that I avoid.
mm. I appreciate each of those in their own unique way, and I think in some ways it's probably a fitting transition. Last question that I would love to pose to you. That's one that I do try to wrap up all the conversations around is, and you can take this in whatever direction you like. Karch, what's something that you're proud of that maybe you don't always get an excuse to talk about?
Who? Um, I I guess, and I knew this right from the start, but I had a lot of success on the court as a player. And it was not just because of me by any means. I got to play with some of the greatest players in history, some of the greatest indoor players ever, some of the greatest beach players ever. And but I do know that it's not so often that people who've had a lot of success on the court then become coaches and have a lot of success. Much more normal is for people who've had a lot of success to really struggle at coaching. And it would be easy to do that. It's like, how do they not see what I see? How do they not know what to do? What are you, stupid? Like, just get really impatient, really um, uh, struggle to understand a more normal competitor's struggles in terms of how to see and compete in the game. And so I know I'm really swimming upstream in that. I knew it right from the start. And so I knew I had to work harder than the average person diving into coaching. I also competed for so long into my mid 40s that I got a really late start in coaching. Lots of great coaches maybe finished their career in volleyball, maybe finished their career because they were a bench player, a backup. I mean, you hear about that in football all the time. It's the third string quarterback or the second string quarterback who wasn't all that athletically gifted, had to study the game and be an incredible student. And those are the guys who make great coaches, who were often not actually on the field, but had to stay ready to be on in case something came up and an opportunity came up. So I think I'm proud that I got a late start in coaching, and I'm swimming upstream and still doing all right and helping our team do great things. It certainly helps that I'm more than okay trying to surround myself with amazing people who are coaches, who are performance staff, support staff, and have had that for many, many years with the USA Women, continue to have it, an incredible staff with the USA men's team, some of the best people in their fields on the planet, whether it's strength and conditioning, mental performance, athletic training, and uh, being physios, rehabilitation, uh, uh, data analysis. The list goes on and on. And so that makes the job a whole lot easier. And not only just people who are great at what they do, but just great people, people who are great to be around and be in it together in this struggle.
Yeah. There was another guest that I had recently, and we were talking about at the end of the day, we were talking about people and systems and how those two things are essential to the success of a team or an organization. But we said like you could have great systems, but if you don't have great people, it's the systems are going to get weighed down. But on the other end, like you could have maybe not great systems, but you bring in great people, highly skilled, but also just high character, and those systems are going to rise inevitably. And I think the other thing I'd hit on that I like to say like success is not an accident, nor is it a solo journey. So I think for you to have the career that you've had, it's again it rings kind of true that there's certainly a lot of people that you've had and also that you currently still are around that are very meaningful in your own journey and success. So I appreciate more than anything, Karch, you taking some time. Again, I know this is still a busy time in its own way, especially amidst holidays, but I'm super grateful for your time and your presence and your willingness to share today.
Well, thank you. And the gratitude goes right back at you, and the appreciation, Zach, both for what you're doing here. But I think I know I originally got to learn about you and other people who are pursuing mastery in their craft, people like Bernie and Cece on the Coach Your Brains Out podcast that John Mayer and Billy Allen do such a nice job of. So thanks for all the time you've taken to help coaches, especially volleyball coaches, by sharing your thoughts there and your stories. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it, Karsh. That means a lot. And yeah, again, I'm grateful for your time.
Awesome. Thanks so much.